Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to episode number 4. Alhamdulillah. These conversations have been so amazing. We are on the Ramadan Roadmap. We are trying to help everybody that is watching, all our dear viewers, with some great tips and hints about how they can navigate through, not just through Ramadan, but navigate through their life. And we've had amazing topics and amazing guests joining us. And today is going to be another great topic. We're going to be talking about fulfillment, contentment, and happiness. We're looking at how you can fill that void. Sister Doureine is with me again. Assalamu alaikum, sister. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam. All good. Thank you. Thank you. We have with us today Farzana, the lovely Farzana Hirji Karawalli. Many of you might already know her because she's so big in the mental health arena. Farzana is a social worker, an LD nurse, and a therapeutic coach and masseuse. So Farzana, I mean, this topic that we're going to talk about today, fulfillment, contentment, happiness, how to fill the void, how does this fit into today's world that we live in?
First of all, I'd like to say salam alaikum and thank you so much, both of you, for inviting me on. Apologize for the voice. Hopefully it will stay through the whole of the session, inshallah. So I think in today's life, we just have so much going on. Every time we meet people, it's usually, it's not like, hey. So I think there's so much going on. There's so much to sift through. We're not getting time to pause, reflect, think, be mindful. No matter how much we want to, it becomes a physical task of mindfulness, not a spiritual task of mindfulness. Again, the word task, it becomes a task. It doesn't become a way of being. We forgot how we are as beings, and we're more like human. The being part of it is very much lost in essence. And that's not just with us, but we're seeing it in the younger generation as well. It's all go, go, go. So I think there's a lot to talk about. I love the topic that you guys have chosen. Alhamdulillah, looking forward to having a discussion. But first, I want to ask you a question, okay? Mm-hmm. Do you have a selective memory? Both of you have to answer this.
Well, depending on the person that I'm speaking to or speaking to me, I do have selective hearing. I have been told that quite a lot. But I think, selective memory, I think definitely. You get to my age and you kind of forget a lot of things, and we put things to one side in our brain sometimes, especially I think with traumas and things that have really hurt us. We then put that into a little compartment, and maybe we channel that through the therapeutic process and try to release it, but they're buried somewhere in our brain. Yeah. How about you, sister?
Yeah, me, it's the same. I think I know that I see the world in a certain way. And that's how I process information. And I have dealt with a lot of people to realize the difference between how I deal with a particular event or a particular information and how, let's say, my husband or my children would deal with it. So I am selective. And I think that's probably due to, I don't know, my life experiences, right, Farzana?
Yeah, definitely. And do you think, so I'm going to ask you, what do you choose to remember?
Say that again, please.
What do you choose to remember? So like Neil, you said that you will lock away some of the difficult times, but what do you choose to remember? What kind of things do you choose to remember?
I think a lot of things that come to the forefront are the happy times, things where I felt elated or a sense of achievement or a sense of pride. They come to the forefront, and it's more the bad, the worst times, the scars really, which are buried. They're the ones that really go right to the back of the mind. But I know, obviously, for the work I do, that you can learn and grow and develop from the traumas and pains that we have. And every time we, feel disheartened or we get disapproval, that there's a point of learning and growth within that. But I think naturally and more easier, the happy times always come to the top of your mind, and the times that you've felt like, you're on top of the world, or you were given that sense of pride.
Doreen.
Yeah, so for me, now in the space that I am now, I think as opposed to maybe 10 years ago, I choose to remember things that will actually make me happy, like Neil said, things that have really, bridged my past to my present. And yeah, I choose to remember things that will make me move in my life rather than hold me back. So there's been a transformation for sure. But yeah, I don't know if that helps.
So the reason why I'm asking is, I mean, for me, the next question would be, do you think that we can change our selection criteria? Because like you said, we will mindfully hold on to those memories that are really positive, right? And we will also make sure that we're fully present in those moments where we feel elated and happy and things like that. And when there's pain, we won't, even within that time, we will refrain from holding that within our memory. In the process of taking it in, we won't fully take it in. We will take it in as a viewpoint, not as a fact, because it can be quite, at the time. So really, I think one of the things that we need to think about is being very selective about our memory and making sure that to feel contentment, that we hold on to even the smallest difficult times that can give us an understanding that actually it was difficult, but Allah was there to support me. So forgetting the difficult time can also make you forget when it comes to the fact that Allah was there to pick you up from that time. Does that make sense? So if we're not selecting that as our memory and we're pushing it away, we will also lose with it the bit that comes after, where we've actually realized, looking back, that's when we usually realize that that was a difficult time, but you know what? It was actually a blessing in my life. I've learned so much from it. You won't see that because the perception you looked at it at the time made you want to put it aside. And also, you won't be able to reflect in retrospect on it in the best way possible to see where Allah's love has come through. Because that's where the contentment comes in, where you see Allah's love, Allah's rahmah has come through that period. So something we need to think about is when we have selective memory or, selective hearing, let's try and make it so that we're able to take in, yes, the good, not to think and overthink about it. Yeah, we don't want to get into a state where we're traumatized and triggered. Okay, but we at least peripherally get the essence of what factually happened and how over time it has made you grow. From my experiences, a lot of my childhood in terms of my dyslexia, not understanding, being told off by the teachers, having a bad report, being made fun of, all that kind of stuff. When I go back to it retrospectively now, for me, it's the biggest blessing of my life. It was the most painful time, but it's the biggest blessing, because today I would not be who I am. Today I would not be doing what I am. And that's where I feel that I get my gratitude, I'm trying to dig for the words that you had in the title again, begins with C. What's it called? Contentment.
Yeah.
Contentment. You know what? Allah's got my back. He always did. And he always will. And that trust comes in. That trust that Allah is there allows you to feel content. Come on, if you're walking around doing things every day, knowing that you've got a bodyguard next to you, you're content, right? You got nothing to worry about. And Allah is just that. He's more than a bodyguard. He's around you, 360 degrees. He's next to you. He's over you. He's within you. You have to be able to acknowledge that to feel that contentment within you, that, your superpower is with you all the time, has looked out for you and is there for you.
Mashallah. I think it's in those times, we often, in the good times, in the times where we get that, maybe we've got a job that we just wanted, or we've got a reward that we want, or passing, we're saying alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. But how often do we say it in those bad times? Because it's all praise to God for absolutely everything that we have. So it's that total dhikr of Allah and praiseworthiness of Him in any situation that you're in, whether you're down, whether you're disheartened, whether you're feeling a bit lazy or things aren't going your way. Alhamdulillah for absolutely everything. And the way you do that is by changing that attitude to gratitude. Being grateful for the smaller things in life. If we have running water coming out of our taps, if we have a roof over our head, clothes to wear, if we have a voice, there you go, Farzana, if we have breath, just small things in our lives that we can be thankful for, that gives us that total serenity and that submission to Allah, even when things are not going our way. It's just, we've always got him there, as you say. So constantly keeping that dhikr, tasbih in my hand right now, and I'm just constantly saying alhamdulillah for everything that we have. And this is the month of remembrance. This is the month of forgiveness. It's the month of mercy. So, dear viewers, keep on saying praise be to Allah.
I think, go on, sorry.
I love what you said about pain and the lessons learning from pain. Because when you think about it, even, a human being even a baby, when the baby's born, it comes with pain, it experiences pain. The first minute, the first second it's born, we as human, we're meant to experience pain. We're meant to go through the pain to be able to come out the other side, with a lesson, with more elevation, with more growth, with more insight, with more, with more perspectives, right? And it's only when we deal with it in the right way, and when we talk about it the right way, when we feel in the right way, when we select, like you said, selective memory, you can move forward. Otherwise, it could kill you if you don't, right? If you don't see those pockets of happiness.
Definitely. And that goes back to what Neil was saying in terms of, the gratitude. I mean, there's a lot around gratitude nowadays. I get up in the morning and I do my normal gratitude routine. But that goes back to what I was saying before. We're doing tasks. It's a task. I got to get up at 5 o'clock and I got to stay in my gratitude thingy. And before I go to bed, I got to do my journal. It's a task. We're not fully present within it. A lot of the time we're just doing it. And what happens if it's a task is the gratitude is written down, but at the same time, all the difficult memories are coming back. And neurologically, we are strengthening those memories again and again, triggering ourselves and then reinforcing it with the gratitude. We're not really fully present within our gratitude. We're not fully trusting Allah and feeling it. I mean, just the words of dua iftitar at the beginning, just being thankful, oh Allah, that you have allowed me to sit here and actually talk to you. That's come from you, and if you hadn't given me that, I wouldn't have that ability to sit here and have a session with you and have a good moan, during the dua iftitar. The first, literally the beginning, I feel is like a moaning session. You can sit there and complain, but in the most beautiful manner, that it's actually, you're taking so much from your own complaints. It's an offload, and we're so lucky that we have these duas that allow us to offload, that allow us to retrospect and introspect at the same time, that allow us to check our niyyah and allow us to look forward. And if we're mindful within those duas, we will feel contentment by the time we finish. And come on, every time you've listened or read a dua that really works for you, how do you feel? You really do feel that contentment, right? But we don't hold that through the day. We kind of just compartmentalize it to that moment of the day, and that's it. So we have to start being the things that we are, and kind of understand. I think life is like a game show in some ways, right? And I think Sheikh Shumali was kind of talking a little bit about this yesterday in terms of, was it the day before? That, when you're doing something, the niyyah has to be really perfect. It has to be really positive. It is God-centric, the niyyah, because you're trusting in Allah. And that has to be a reality when you're doing that. And as you're doing that, things will always be positive. When we find that things don't work out for us, it's usually go back to the niyyah. Did you have trust in God? Did you become vulnerable in his presence and say that I'm doing this in your way? Pick me up if I fall. Did we do all of that? No. And so it doesn't work out the way we wanted, because God thinks, well, they're not ready there. They're not there yet. Let's change the plan a bit. Let's go a different direction and make it work for them. I want it to work for them. Clearly, this isn't the way they're doing it, ain't going to work. So we have to be vulnerable in that space of Allah. We have to be, really trustworthy. Like, do you remember those team meetings where, you got those team away days where you're supposed to just drop yourself back and the people behind you are supposed to catch you? It's so scary. Yeah, but we've got to do that. We have to do that with Allah. He's going to catch us. And that's when every decision you make, every niyyah you do, it will work. Guaranteed it will work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes, we have that near, that intention and that sincere dua, but Allah ultimately is the best of planners. And there's times that he knows what's good for us and what's not good for us. So how do we stop that from getting us frustrated that, we want a certain item, we want a certain thing out of our lives, we want to get married, or we want to move forward, or whatever it could be, buy that house. But Allah has a different plan for us, a different outcome. We may have had the most sincerest intention to do that connection with God, to have that serenity towards him. But he then says, no, I'm not going to give you that because I know that's not good for you. How do we overcome that and still feel that fulfillment and still feel that happiness and contentment?
Okay,
it's an
so
interesting one.
Going back to the pain that we've had, we talked about pain, right? All of us, everyone has had some element of pain through their life. We go back to that and we think about what do we do after that pain has happened? We close up, we put our barriers up, we become protective of ourselves, and we become so protective that we protect ourselves even when we're in front of Allah, even when we're in a space of salah, even when we're in dua, we've still got that negativity about, or feeling sorry for ourselves, or covering ourselves in cotton wool. But why in the space of Allah? We need to let go, and we always want to have control. We want to have control too, and I'll say that for myself. So many elements, like my kitchen, I want to have control, and when we have control, that's when we don't have the avenue to be content. So I'll give you an example. We have seasons, right? Which season do you find very difficult, and which one do you enjoy the most? I'll ask Doureine.
Yeah, go for it, sis.
Winter's the worst for me, and spring and summer both are, make me happy.
That's usually the case. Most people say that. But you know what? A couple of years ago, I said to myself, I'm not going to go through winter cringing, moaning, complaining that I can't get up. I'm going to try and work on being more mindful about the beauty of winter, the beauty that there's the bare trees that allow us to actually, which is why I've got a picture of bare trees in my cabin as well, that allow us the time to relax, the time to, and I don't like going on a holiday in the winter, because I feel winter is a time where I get to just chill out. That cozy kind of in front of the fire, watching a movie, having popcorn, that kind of thing. You don't do that in the summer, you're out and about. So there's an appreciation to have, again, gratitude to have with the seasons as well, and allowing ourselves to not want to control our life around those seasons, but to let them be, and let us be within those seasons and appreciate them and give them just as much value. Again, that's allowing us to let go of control and allowing us to be part of those moments and those seasons. And if we can do that in any state of our life, okay, our vision of the world will change. Our vision of how we do things will change. Just being and appreciating even the things that are not in our control, but there's so much benefit within them. Does that make sense? And that kind of answers question in an indirect manner, Neil, I think, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. It's beautifully put. Thank you so much. Going back to the seasons, again, I love watching the earth change, the world change in terms of the seasons. It's a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see the trees fall in with leaves, and autumn for me is one of my most beautiful seasons because it's making room for new growth. It's changing the cycle that's going on out there. You see spring and new life. Allah is showing us that we can continuously grow, we can continuously change and develop just the way the seasons show us. I ask our viewers a very simple question. Does the sun ever rise or does the sun ever set? Most people say, yeah, the sun rises nil and the sun sets every day. Actually, guys, the sun never moves. It stays in the same place. It's us that's moving. This planet that we're on is continuously rotating. And that's what we need to do. As human beings, we continuously need to move. Allah is showing us signs everywhere. And if you can have that connection and that total serenity. And if you want to feel that sense of gratitude and happiness, actually just take a moment to pause and reflect of everything that is around you, because it's there. It's closer than your jugular vein. The universe is within you, dear people. Just capture a few moments, stop, pause, and reflect. Inshallah, it does work.
And to add to that, Neil, and to add to what you said also, Farzana, the interesting thing about contentment and fulfillment, you can actually see these in examples within our faith. When you see Prophet Yaqub, who had Sabr Jamil, but who was also grieving, but also had contentment. You can see Bibi Hajra, for example, who still had contentment, tawakkul, and faith, yet she was probably very worried for her baby. And I think that it really ties really nicely with what you said. We are human beings and doings at the same time. So it's the action, it's the element of action that we're going to go towards something that's making us feel content. Bibi Hajra didn't just sit there and say, Allah's got me, he's got my back, it's gonna come. No, she went not once, not twice, 7 times. It was the element of taking that action that made it, that she eventually was, an alhamdulillah, happy in the end. So it's that element of sabr being an active word rather than passive. Sabr isn't the myth that we think about, it's gonna come, it'll be fine, no, you've got to actively, do the things that you need to be doing to get in we talked about circle of influence. Don't try and control what's not in your influence, just try and control what's within your influence. Just start with that. You can't change the other person, change yourself. If you're having a fight, if you're having a disagreement, what is it that you can do? That is sabr. That's another perspective of sabr. And that is also, it's part of iman, is taking that action.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, really good.
Amazing. But so let's go back to sort of the void. Farzana, my question is, a lot of people feel disconnected, feel that void, and it's the doing, for sure, like the constant doing. What is it we can as humans put in place in our lives so that connection remains? We don't disconnect, that internet line with Allah is always there. Or what are the practical things we can do?
So I first want to dissect the word void, right? Void is kind of like a gap or a space, or, something's not gone the way it needs to. And so you kind of fell down, into the void, as it were. So I'm going to ask a question to you guys again. What happens when you're disappointed? What are the feelings that go with it? What's the experience that goes with the state of disappointment for you?
I think it's that feeling of sadness. Sometimes that feeling of like you've let yourself down, or you've let others down as well, maybe in that process.
There's guilt.
It's that guilt, isn't it? Sometimes I'm trying to dissect the fact that word guilt, really. Sometimes I feel guilty for myself. Maybe I haven't put 100% effort into some task or whatever it is that I was trying to do. But also maybe guilt that you might feel that you've let somebody else down. There's always some one parallel, one negative could equal a positive in some eyes, but then negative can also equal negative in other ways. But yeah, it's that feeling of gloom, doom and gloom. The cloud is above my head again. Not for Sister Doureine. She's in Madagascar. There's no clouds there.
It's just the blue sky. Yeah, for me, I think I resonate with what Neil just said, and it is guilt, and it's that feeling of that sinking feeling that, oh gosh, you can actually, I can actually feel my heart sink sometimes, literally the feeling of it, and also it's the failure of it. I didn't manage to for example, when it comes to my kids and I'm disappointed in, it's me, it's my fault.
So I know you know this example, Neil, from the Mosaic course that we deliver. So when you have a period of time where there's been failure or disappointment, it's designed that you're meant to go into a state of depression for a little while, or a low mood or whatever. That allows you to recalibrate. It allows you to reserve the energy so that your mind can think about the issues that possibly went wrong. Why did it go wrong? How did it go wrong? How could I correct it? Unfortunately, in that cycle of asking those questions, when we feel sorry for ourselves, when we start protecting ourselves, when we put our barriers up, we get locked in that space. And that's when depression kicks in. It's not unhealthy to feel low and to feel depressed. It's actually very healthy. You need to allow yourself to be in that state to understand, because if we're constantly elated, we're never going to slow down to think about the difficulties. And also when we're working with, when we're trying to pick up our pieces, we also physically need to slow down again, so that we can stop and look at what went wrong, and then build our energy up slowly and piece by piece put things back together, not to rush, Hence, we must slow down first. There has to be spaces of void within our life, and we have to be able to learn to appreciate them, because those are spaces of recalibration for us, okay? And we do that. We have updates on our phones. We have updates on our laptops. Our GPS needs to recalibrate, We appreciate it with our, IT stuff, but we can't appreciate that in our life, we also need a sense of recalibration. And that's what Ramadan is. Ramadan is for us a space of recalibration. Don't eat. Put your energy into other things instead. Sleep, and then think about what you're doing as well. Slow yourself down. And that's what it does. It really slows us down. Sometimes we're like, oh my God, when is Eid coming? This is just too slow for me. I'm not used to it. It's true.
Yeah.
So we need voids in our life, and Allah has put that within our calendar. Like, it's there. We have no choice about it. So I think when we're looking at void, we need to understand that, again, it goes back to, surrender to the nurturing power of Allah. Surrender to that and find your way within that void. Don't use a void as something that's putting you down. Change your perspective. Right from the start of this discussion, right to now, everything has been about perspective. A lot of stuff that we've talked about has been about our perspective. There is fear of the unknown. That's why we don't like the void. We don't know what's going to happen when we come out of this dark tunnel and we start facing the world again. The void, you could see it as a time of COVID. We all got kind of stuck behind closed doors. The fear of the unknown of coming out into the world after COVID was us coming out from that void of 3 years or 2 years in our life that we spent behind closed doors. The fear of what's going to happen sent stress through the roof. Mental health has gone up like double, triple fold since COVID, and we always talked about mental health before that. It's even more, now. And so, so we've got to find the opportunities that are there within the void state that we get. And another thing about void is, if you have a void in your life, then really you need to think about, in terms of recalibration, okay, if we use that word, are your values purposeful and fitting the actions and the things that you're doing? Are you living according to your values? Have you even decided what values are true to you, or have you picked up your mom's values, your dad's values, your grandparents, your in-laws' values, your husband's values, and you end up throwing them on your children, but that's another story. Have you sifted through them all and decided, actually, these are my values, and I'm going to live my life according to that? And Ramadan and Muharram are the 2 months, and Rajab and Shaban as well, are the months that we are looking very deeply at ourselves and our values. These are the times where we can really stick by who we are. We struggle to connect. We struggle to be spiritual. Well, if your values are about something else that doesn't work with spirituality, you're not going to benefit from the spiritual months and the actions, because they will just be that. They will be actions. We won't be living those moments because our values are against us. Does that make sense? So to be able to get away from a void, you need to be able to check, are the values serving my purpose in life? Am I achieving what I want to achieve? If I'm not achieving, is that because my values are different to what I want to achieve? So it's like me, a'udhu billah. It's not true, but anyway, I value God, I value Allah's presence, I love him to bits, but you know what? I'm going to go gambling today. It's not fitting my values.
Yeah.
It isn't. There's so many things that we could be doing in our daily life, tax evasion, this, that, the other. Is it fitting my values? That's why I'm having voids. That's why I'm not happy. That's why I can't live a life that is, comforting to me, that is giving me peace and tranquility. And again, I've lost the word that you guys have put on the title beginning with C. What was it?
Contentment.
Contentment. Yeah.
That's the one to be my friend today.
That's all right. No
Write
problem.
it down somewhere. I actually, I think that what you're saying makes so much sense, because a lot of people they think that having values, whether that's, in our case, alhamdulillah, we have our Islamic values, and leading a life is two different things. And there's a disconnection between your religion and your way of life, which means that when you're actually living your life, you kind of are two different faces, two different persons. And that's again going back to what you said before about intentions. What are our intentions? You talked about meaning. Do we live a life with meaning? Is our life full of meaningful, is it a meaningful life? Do we have a presence in our life, in our own life, right? So that's big. That's actually really big, because we all kind of somehow, sometime fall into that. And you talked about void being a necessary evil in effect, right? Because we do need that void. You use the word recalibration, which is awesome, because everyone always needs that. Everything, recalibration is the way we learn how to go back to the road, right? We lose ourselves, when we have a GPS, we lose the way. It recalculates to where we want to go. So that was brilliant. Thank you.
I think, coming back to that reflection that you were saying, and sorry to interrupt you. Yes, we've got the cycles of the year. We've got Shah Ramadan, Rajab Shaban, and we've got Muharram, where we try to stop and pause and pick up the pieces and recalibrate. But our daily lives as well, we're given 5 opportunities a day to stop and remember God. And again, I think sometimes, and I talk for myself before I talk to anyone else, this can be quite a ritualistic act. We don't take our salah in a very mindful way and concentrate. That's why, hence, sometimes we forget what rak'ah we're on, we forget what surah we're reciting. We need to be more mindful and present that we've actually got this opportunity, and it's an opportunity to just stop, pause, ponder, and reflect. If the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, says 1 hour's worth of reflection could be up to 70 years worth of ibadah, I ask our viewers a sincere question. When was the last time you stopped and sat down and reflected for an hour? Because that's a lifetime, my dear friends. 70 years, inshallah, I live to 70. I feel like I'm 70 this morning, but stop, pause, reflect, ponder, because this is where the growing is. This is where you can think about your direction of life. This is where you can connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Really important to take your ritualistic values and your practices from what you learn, not what you inherit. Amir Mu'mineen alayhi salam, the commander of the faithful, beautifully says, what does he say? Learn your religion, do not inherit it. So once you learn your religion, you'll fall in love with your religion and you'll find your values within your religion, and then it becomes applicable. Things just do not become habitual. They don't become because you've inherited it, because you've always done it, because you always break your fast with Mandazi and you always have kukupaka on a Wednesday and dal on a Monday. Life is not about ritualistic actions. Life is about enjoyment and fulfilling happiness. And what's that C word, Farzana?
Contentment.
Sand.
Add flexibility in there as well, because we don't like change. We just don't like change, do we?
No, we don't like change.
We allow a little bit of flexibility. It won't surprise us and stick us in a void when change comes around the corner.
Yeah.
No,
like Neil says this, and I've picked up from Neil's the first episode we did, that, be like water.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. Can you say that again, Neil? I love that.
Yeah, that's the flexibility, right? So for me, it's actually Bruce Lee. It's a famous quote from Bruce Lee. So water is one of the strongest elements in the world. It can be frozen and it can be really hard and solid. It can be like a waterfall, rapid and thunderous. It can be like a tsunami and it can destroy, but it can also be calm and tranquil and really peaceful. Sometimes we look into the water and it looks muddy, but you put a glass in there and you look up to the sky and it's clear. We as human beings are 60 to 70% water inside. But I ask you, are you a tsunami? Are you a waterfall? Or do you have that tranquility within? And that is what happens when you stop and pause, meditate, focus on the world and connect. So be like water, dear viewers.
Be like water. That's definitely a takeaway there. Farzana, if we go back to the concept of depression, and you mentioned that it's sometimes good to have depression so that you can learn things. What would you say somebody going through a difficult time, a time of depression, specifically, and I mentioned this in the last episode, people, especially women going through depression after they've given birth and things like that, that feeling of void in that way, and that feeling of feeling nothing and everything and destruction and all of those negative, strong emotions that one goes through. How do you give hope to that? How do you come out of that when you're within the space? Because it's okay when you're outside the space and you can talk about it and you can see it once you're on the other side of it. But for those going through it within that.
So I had postnatal depression as well with one of my children. And I think when we think about it, it was undiagnosed, but because I was doing my nursing, they diagnosed it at the university and said that, so I didn't take it any further. But going through that, looking back on that and the things that you said in terms of, you're in a state of no connection. You can't connect with your child. You're in a state of overwhelm. Okay, I'm looking at the literal symptoms of this depression that you will, or that you should be feeling at that time if you're in the depression. So a state of overwhelm, a state of lack of connection with anyone. In fact, you'd get annoyed with everyone because you aren't connecting. But the thing is, you just feel numb with your child. So you're not annoyed at your child. You're numb. There's no connection. And because of that, because of these things, you will then feel, you will create the feelings of, this is the extra. So the hormones are creating specific feelings, okay? You will then create guilt. I'm not connecting with my child. You create that yourself. And this is where we muddy it up. We make it a bit more than it is. And it's very hard to be in control of ourselves to remove that guilt. I mean, Neil spoke about it before, right? It just comes in, but we have to be mindful that this has come in. The fact that I can't connect with my child is a fact. There must be a reason for that. But now I'm feeling guilty about it. And then I'm having to go at everyone else because I'm feeling guilty that I can't be a good enough mother, and I break down, whatever it is, then those feelings of I'm not a good enough mother come in. I'm going to be terrible. You start thinking about your child to the age of 17, 18. If I'm like this right now, my poor child is never going to make it to the age of 18. I'm going to make them a mental case. All that kind of stuff. You are manifesting these thoughts. They're not the original feelings and things that were placed within you at that time. Okay. Then after that, and I'm talking about myself here, okay? Then after that, the aggression towards others. Again, there's guilt, then there's defensiveness. So the others, family members that are trying their best to come and help you, they are kind of annoyed at you now, and you're getting defensive. That defensiveness within you is creating even more emotions and another whirlwind of, can you understand? There's so many add-ons that we are actually adding onto the state. But the simple state of disconnect allows us, if you think about it, going back to the fact of we need that space of void, yes, not having being disconnected from your child. What does that mean? It means you need a bit of a break so that you can hand your child to somebody else to look after. If you are that connected, I can't let go of my child. That's the nurturing thing that you have. I'm not going to let go. But there are some times, and when I look at it, my first delivery was the hardest. Okay, so I needed to have a space of disconnect from him so that I could feel comfortable to hand him over to somebody else. Does that make sense? So I think what we need to be aware of are what are the organic things that are happening to us? What are the things that we are putting in or feeling as a result of the organic situation within the environment? Always think about what's happening to us as, different levels. There's an internal state, okay? There is the fact of the internal state, and there is an internal state. So the biological fact, biological, neurological facts of what's happening, Allah's facts, okay? Then there is the emotions that we feel, which is the internal state. Then there's the environment and the reactions it has with the emotions and the altercations it has to create us to put up more barriers and fight back with the environment, and it fights back with us. Can you see the mess that's occurring there? In a state like that, we're losing a lot of focus within what's happening. So having postnatal depression, from my experience, actually was a very painful situation because of the way I may have made it and the environment may have made it. But the purpose of it would have been, I would presume, from the state that I was in, allowing me that space and time again to recalibrate and be able to give the best I can to my child. I hope that makes sense. A bit long.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. And thank you for breaking it down like that and giving such a personal example. It's getting to know that there's khair in everything. There is blessings in everything. There's a reason behind the actions that you go through. I've had times in my life where it's been so tough and so hard, and it's very difficult to move forward. So many bombardments before I reverted. I had what I call my year of sorrow. So many things happened to me. But that, through going through those hardships and those pains in that year, actually brought me to the beautiful religion of Islam. Made me a Shia, made me put my head and supplicate and say, La ilaha illallah. And when I look back on some of those moments, when I look back at some of those things that I went through, and you guys know, as coaches as well, yes, it's great sometimes when we're with our clients and we're using the practical tips that we've learned in our study books. But sometimes, maybe 50, maybe 60% of the times, we're using our life experience to help others get through their struggles and their issues and their roadblocks. We understand that these roadblocks are there for a reason. They're there so we can climb over them. And then we know 100% that we'll be down again. If we all of us put our hearts on a heart rate monitor, what are we going to see? We're going to see up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. Dear viewers, that means you're alive. Yeah, you are alive. You never want to get to a point where you just see that flat line. So life is up and down. And if you notice one thing, it's not down for too long. It picks itself back up. So it's okay to be down, but pick yourself back up and understand that life is like that. I say that life is like a roller coaster, right? Everyone's been on a roller coaster, been on one of those theme parks. Yeah, it goes up and it goes down and it goes round and round. And sometimes you're upside down and then sometimes you're the other way around. What can you do about it? Absolutely nothing. Put on the seatbelt and enjoy the ride, because that ride is so short. If you're worried about it when you're upside down, or when you're round and round, or when you're down, you're not going to enjoy the ride of life. So this is one view, perspective of way to look at it. Just keep on going and keep on moving forward. You have got the potential in those darkest places to find some learning within it. Thank you so much for sharing your personal experience, Farzana. It was really, really interesting.
I just wanted to add something to that, Neil, that you talked about when you're down, it doesn't stay there for long. That's so true. I mean, so true for so many of us. It's just that we don't notice it, isn't it? And, you know, the Prophet actually, I'm going to paraphrase, but he was saying that when you're, you know, you can shed tears with your eyes and you can feel pain in your heart, but just make sure you do not complain against the decree of Allah, you know. And that's like, you know, we see that with Prophet Yaqub, we see that with so many of our prophets, with our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, when he went through the year of sorrow for himself, he did shed tears. It's okay to shed tears. It's okay to cry. You shouldn't feel guilty that you're complaining. You can complain. It's just be careful and be mindful not to complain against the decree of Allah, and be surrendering to that. And today in psychology, they've discovered as well that all these mental health challenges and all of these issues, there's only one way to overcome these. And there's only one way to overcome panic attacks and traumas and everything. And it's the same answer, is you have to feel your pain. We are scared to feel the pain. We want to move away from the pain, but the answer is feel your pain, and only after you feel your pain can you release your pain and move forward.
True.
And the prophets
Very
did that. All our prophets did that, right? So
that's as well.
Exactly. Sorry, what did you say?
That's where reflection comes in as well, doesn't it? You know, if we don't reflect, allow ourselves to, we can't just reflect on the positives. We must reflect on positives, yes. And we can't just reflect on the negatives. We need to reflect on both. We need to feel the pain, and we need to feel the times when we were quite elated and happy and, you know, calm as water.
Calm as water, reflective as water. As they say, you know, if you're in the gym, what do they say? No pain, no gain. Yeah,
yes.
So literally it's quite a true phrase in that respect. I want to do another hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salam, and it's something that one of the first hadiths that I ever learned, which I attributed towards Rumi in my ignorance, and that is the stars can only shine in the darkest places, which is such a deep hadith. You know, in my humble reflection, my humble opinion, it's in those darkest moments when we've got our head down and we can't see anything, we can't see that light, we just need to lift our head up and understand that the stars are shining, the light is there, it is there. There is always light at the end of that tunnel for you, but you just have to lift your head up and have hope that you'll go through it, and know that that light is your contentment, is your happiness. It is being flexible, and it is moving towards that life of fulfillment. We all go through dark times, but the stars will never shine. This daytime now, well, it doesn't look like daytime in not so sunny England, but the stars are out there. They're still in the sky, but we can't see them because it's dark. It's not dark. So when you're in those places, always have hope, and remember that beautiful hadith from Imam Ali alayhi salam. The stars will only shine in the darkest places.
Do we have time for one quick story, real story?
Yeah, definitely. We've got about 10 minutes. Go for it.
So when you were talking about, you know, the deepest, darkest moments, so as a nurse, oh God, it's been nearly 20 years practicing. I've worked with people that have passed away, palliative care, all that pain, family difficulties, all of that stuff. For you know, being at many people's bedsides while they're dying. My grandmother died. I held her hand as well, and she passed away. Like, you know, my grandfather died in that, you know, on his way in the ambulance from home, and you know, I was the one that obviously worked. You know, so I've been exposed to death so much. You know, thinking that into it, I'm okay, I can manage it, I'm in control. But 3 years ago in Ramadan, when my father passed away, when he was going through, a lot of difficulty, he had a kidney issue and he went into hospital, and as a result, unfortunately, it was the beginning of COVID. And he ended up catching COVID, so we never saw him again. That was it. Went in, that was it. But during that time, obviously being a nurse, I would check up, look up the stats, look at what was going on with him, and what I realized is that I was trying to control the situation. Well, you what medication are you giving him? How much are you giving him? Why are you giving it? When are you giving it? No. And then I got a call one night, to say, and this is when the deepest, darkest bit that you're saying, it just took me straight back there when you said about seeing the stars in the dark. Mm. It was so sad. The doctor called me, and I've worked with doctors all the time. They never speak like this, never. Maybe it was Ramadan, maybe she was a Muslim, that's why she said. She goes to me, your father only has this night, 24 hours. It's very critical. If he gets through this, he'll be fine. If he doesn't, that's it. Just imagine that state when you can't even be at your father's bedside when he's passing away. He's all alone, all that pain. And I'm not saying this obviously because I'm trying to get attention from it. What I'm trying to say is, how does that impact us? We bring all that onto us, right? And we feel sorry for ourselves, even though he's the one that's, and that's how I was in that state. I can't let go. I need that control. I need to make sure he's okay. I need to do my best for him, blah, 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 blah. Me. And then I literally started reciting a munajat of the 12th Imam that I'd been listening to quite a bit. And I literally felt I was in the lowest position. But in that position, I felt comfort. I felt like somebody had their hand on my head and said, it's going to be okay. You'll get through this. Whatever the case, you'll get through this. He did make a comeback, but unfortunately, again, the COVID stayed recessive. It was a double whammy, COVID, and it came back when he was weaker. And so the following week, same time, a doctor said to my brother this time, this is it. He can't come back from this. He's too weak from this. His organs are going to shut down now. You have to now think about what's going to happen next. So what do you want to do? So my brother called me and said those words, and he said, let go of control. This is no longer about you. Let go of, asking how much oxygen is he having. Stop checking the stats. Stop checking everything now. If this is his time to go, let him go. Let him go from yourself, And those words will never leave my head, because I was controlling a situation where I should have had full trust and tawakkul on Allah that he will, if he takes my father, it's fine. It's his right. It's his. It's not mine, And again, I fell into a very deep state. I think people have heard my talk that I'd given hours after his burial. In that time when I was sitting and I'd got the news from my brother, I literally went into that state of void that we're talking about. Total darkness, not knowing what to do. The good thing was there was no guilt or anything like that. I'd done the best I could. I'd worked through everything that I possibly could. At that point, I was ready to surrender. At that point, I said, where is the beauty in this? I want to see it. I want to see it. I need to understand how this is going to be a good thing, because I only see it from a negative perspective. In that time, the words of Bibi Zainab, I see nothing but beauty, came to my head, and that's where I understood in the full essence what that meant. That even in your deepest, darkest moments, there is beauty in this, in how you let go, in how you allow. If we let go, then Dad can let go. He can move on. Does that make sense? We're so interconnected with each other, and we don't realize sometimes our pains are put on other people, and vice versa. We always want so much control, but we need to learn to let go in those times and really surrender to Allah's, what Allah wants from us, what Allah wants from the situation. Alhamdulillah, what a beautiful person I had in my life. What a beautiful life I had. I can only keep those selective memories and use them as learning for my future.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. That's a beautiful mindset. That's the way to see it. That's being mindful and present. That's actually looking at it from the different lens. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise the status of your marhum father, inshallah. And we see the attributes of your father in you. You know, we know his beauty because we see our beautiful sister here who's sharing a great knowledge. And thanks again for sharing such a personal story as well. But dear viewers, you know, this is something that we can all learn from. This is how we find contentment and happiness. And let's pause. I mean, let's reflect on that statement from Bibi Zainab, which you could pause and reflect for hours upon hours to understand what was meant by that. She had just seen her whole family massacred on the day of Ashura. She'd seen torture and bloodshed, but yet she stands there and says, I see nothing but beauty. Subhanallah, subhanallah. Would we ever put ourselves in that situation? Do we feel depressed? We feel down. We feel we haven't got things our way. Do we see the khair in it? Do we see the beauty in it? This is the state that we need to get to. And this is where we can do that by stopping, pausing, reflecting, being flexible, looking at things from that different lens, seeing the stars in those darkest places, and finding the khair in everything, finding the happiness and the beauty in it. Inshallah, we can all do that. Definitely.
Inshallah.
We're coming into the...
Sorry, I was just going to say, this is a good example of that selective memory you spoke about, you know, the good selective memory, and then what you know, us as human beings, we're very selective. We forget that nothing belongs to us and everything belongs to Allah. Everything belongs to God. Even the people we love, even the, you know, forget the things, but the people we love, and we want to hold on to them. And you said very, very beautifully that, you know, when you let go, He can let go, because we're in an amnesic state when we're in this world. We forget so much that we were given, we are blessed, and we just want to focus on what we don't have now. And your experience, and thanks for sharing that. It's beautiful how you came to that realization and you went through the process and you applied everything. It's an amazing reminder, definitely for me, and hopefully for everybody else out there as well. Asante.
Thank you so much. We're into the last couple of minutes of today's episode. Sister Farzana, thank you so much for sharing. Where can our viewers find you? Where can they see the work that you do? How can they connect to this coaching and massage thing that you've got going on right now? Have you got a website? Have you got a social media platform?
So I think Instagram, Farzana Inspires Wellbeing, the same thing with LinkedIn. Is the best way to get hold of me at the moment. Website's not ready yet. Inshallah soon.
Inshallah soon. Thank you so much. We'll put the details in the comments field and the description of this particular episode, inshallah, with how you can reach all three of us, inshallah, if you would like to contact any of us and you need any help and support. We do pray, inshallah, you found today's episode useful and insightful, and you've got some incredible tips to help you along your roadmap through Ramadan, inshallah, and beyond. Thank you so much, Farzana, for joining us.
Thank you.
I hope your voice gets better. And my dear sister in Madagascar, enjoy the sunshine.
Thank you very much. And hope everybody's I'm big on taking notes and new takeaways, because we would like all of you to at some point share with us what you've taken away. Thank you.
Definitely. Join us again on Friday, where we'll be talking food with Sister Sakina about nutrition and how we can have a healthy and balanced approach to Shahr Ramadan. We'll see you then, inshallah. Thanks for joining. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi.